This is Comic Bits by the Glick.
Hey, I'm your host, Jason Glick.
Jason, what do you have for us tonight?
Well, tonight is something that, I wasn't expecting to talk about, but, it just arrived in my lap, like, within the past week, and that is, Leviathan, the first, completed, seinen manga series from, Kana, the imprint of, publisher, Abrams that is dedicated to, publishing, seinen manga. Now, it's like, if you're not familiar with, like, what seinen manga is, it's basically dedicated, like it's like the genre that is like talks about like older male manga that is aimed towards like an older male audience. It's like stuff like it's like Berserk, Golden Kamuy. It's like even 20th Century Boys, and it's like I mean, on one hand, like it is kind of like characterized by just more mature themes, ideally, but it's like, hey, it's also the like the genre where like it's like lots of more blood and guts than anything else. Now, I want you to keep that in mind. It's like as we talk about this particular series, which is like the first publishing effort from Kana. It's like, and it's how like how their imprint got there, like came to my attention in the first place. And it's got like a pretty solid premise, because it starts off with these salvagers like in space finding this it's like this like the spaceship, and then just like seeing that hey, maybe like we can find some kind of like like it's like it's like salvage from this from this ship. And then like as like the three salvagers go into the ship, they find out that oh wow, it's like there's like all sorts of like traps, and it's again like all sorts of craziness going on here, and also this diary from one of the like people who was on the ship, because it turns out that this ship was like ferrying a bunch of school kids like like on this one trip. Like there was, and these kids, they were like some of them were like like from a high class neighborhood, some of them from inner cities. It's like, and they were just like being delivered along on this trip. And then before they reached its destination, it's like it was like they were attacked, or it's like just bad stuff happened to them, to the point where now they're it's like now the ship has been disabled, and like there's only like a certain amount of time before they all die of oxygen deprivation. And that's a story that the salvagers get from this diary left by this one kid, Kazuma. Now Kazuma is like by all intents and purposes like a regular kid. It's like, hey, it's like someone who is just hey, it's like who's just like perfectly normal, and just like bad stuff happens. But then like once the ship is disabled by this mysterious attack, it's like he finds himself thrust into this like struggle for survival, not just amongst by on his own terms, but also by like another of his classmates, Futaba. Like she is someone who just who finds out that that there is like a limited amount of time and oxygen before everyone dies. It's like, and and one of the one of the teachers that finds this out as well, and then finds out that she knows about this and tries to kill her, but she's able to to take him out. But then she tries to convince Kazuma don't tell anyone about this, so we can find out who's going to be the one person to to survive and take this cryopod and I can survive this whole experience. But then Kazuma eventually spills the beans, and well, we've all read Lord of the Flies, right? We know how this is going to go. This is things go bad, and everyone starts fighting for survival over the next 3 volumes. So this is a manga from Shiro Kuroi, who originally published, and this was originally published on Shueisha's Jump Plus app, which is also home to lots of other notable series, including Spy Family and Chainsaw Man. Now, if you're thinking wait a second, those aren't seinen series. Well, we'll come back to that in a bit. But this is this series is just really concerned with with the first volume in terms of setting up the threat. Volume 2 with carrying out just how everyone responds to the situation, and then volume 3 with the resolution in it and everything. Now, if you've read my thoughts on these volumes as I've been writing them, at least for the first 2 volumes, you'll notice that you'll remember that I thought the first volume was more notable for the fact that it reminded me of the it was more entertaining for the vibes that it offered. Basically, it's journey back with me, if you will, fellow manga readers, to a point in the 2000s when scanlations were just like the order of the day, and people would just would translate just whatever series they thought looked interesting, and whether or not they would actually complete it is regardless. But you would get just lots of weird violent stuff that just would would not actually that was a lot different from what you'd see in a lot of mainstream American comics. And that's the vibe I appreciated from this first volume of Leviathan. It's it had this really detailed art style that was very reminiscent of Tsutomu Nihei's Blame, which is actually not a coincidence because Shiro Kuroi also apparently worked for a time as an assistant to Nihei when he was working on Knights of Sidonia. So his detailed crosshatch style in these in this series definitely owes a lot to to that creator's work there as well. But the first volume just really kind of had this feeling of a it's like the oddball series that you'd see scanlated on the net somewhere and just be completely invested in, because hey, it was just so different and weird compared to other comics being published at the time, that you want to get invested in it. And that's kind of what got me into the series more than anything else. Those vibes I remember from back in the day, as opposed to the series being actually good, because it's this is really it's a Lord of the Flies in space type business, and every trope and cliche that you think would happen does happen. I mean, Kazuma, being the the bland clueless dupe who falls for every setup that people have in order to get him to reveal the what's going on here, the the big fat guy who just nobody likes, suddenly realizing hey, it's I know what's going on, buddy, because I read your diary, the one that the salvagers read in the present day. It's and he just tries to get Kazuma to set him up with the pod, but then it turns out that Futaba is also on top of this, and she helps kill this guy as well. So that's, but hey, it's all about just this social hierarchy of just these kids trying to decide who's on top and who's eventually going to live in the end. And that's, and even though the first volume is just all about setting up the premise, volume 2 is just all about just hey, who's gonna live and who's who's gonna die. And then you've got like like fairly standard stuff, like the girl who everyone thinks is like, oh, she's a slut, but it turns out that she was actually sexually assaulted by some other kids, and she wants to help another person, avoid that fate. Even as some boys, realize like, hey, we're gonna die, so we want to get laid. It's like, regardless, and that's kind of like like mature like storytelling that you're going to get with this series. At least that's what I thought, like for this, like through this, like second volume, and because like it also like perpetuates the story, like Kazuma, eventually like becoming like a kind of a leader, like of it's like of the inner city faction, like the regular kids, like as opposed to like the high end kids who lived on the hilltop. It's like, and then like when, but then that goes bad as well, because like turns out that like Futaba doesn't actually like, have is actually committed to supporting like Kazuma as well, and so it's like, but even then like you've got like like a solid like action sequence where he fights like like the strongest of the kids, like in his own power armor and all. So it's kind of like, wow, it's like there's like lots of like violent like bloody action here that is very appropriate of like the seinen like genre here throughout these first two volumes. And like after reading the first two volumes, like I was thinking, this is all kind of playing out as I'd expect. And but hey, if this is like set to go on for longer than that, like if this is like set to go on like indefinitely, like your average like Shonen Jump series, then I think maybe I would not want to like follow up on this. But turns out that Leviathan was only lasted like 3 volumes, so might as well like see how things end like, in this third volume. And honestly, I'm glad I did, because like the third volume saves its best twists, for this, for this final volume. Because, well, I don't want to give them all away, but I will say that we learned that Futaba has a lot in common with one of Brad Pitt's most infamous or famous film roles, depending on how you want to look at it. And also, it turns out that one of the salvagers has a very personal connection to the events that happened on this series, is on the it's like on the spacecraft as well. So yeah, it's like there are some like good twists here. Like even if like those who are familiar with like this kind of like genre storytelling may have seen them coming, or at the very least may not have been surprised by how things turn out. But I kind of get the feeling that this is like this wasn't aimed at old people like me, someone who's like oh, I've seen this, I know how this story is going to go. It's like, oh, I've seen like how this is going to end, like this is like I've been here before, that kind of stuff. Like I can't. I mean, like it's like seeing how like this kind of stuff turns out. It's like not like a great surprise, but it really does feel like it was like aimed at like much younger audience than I am, which is true here, because remember how I said this is like like published on the same like Jump Plus app that also played host to the Spy Family and Chainsaw Man. Well, those aren't seinen series, because here's the thing, like though these genre distinctions you've heard before, seinen, shoujo, josei, and seinen, it's like are less genre specifications than they are magazine descriptions. Like they're not like like it's like it's not just because like like a series isn't seinen because of its like storytelling and subject matter. It's because like the magazine that was actually published in. I mean, yeah, it's like like stories like Berserk and 20th Century Boys, like those are clear, like seinen series, like in terms of subject matter and like the series that they're making that they're publishing. But you know what's also a seinen series? Yotsuba and yeah, chew on that for a while. Leviathan, being published in Shueisha's Jump Plus. Well, okay, maybe it's like aimed at like a slightly older audience and like those those that read Demon Slayer. It's like and all, but at the same time though, it really does feel like this is like meant for a like a younger audience that just hasn't like, had the same kind of like exposure to just you know kind the kind of cynicism and violence and bloodiness that that Leviathan traffics in. Because yeah, it's really violent and it's like and bloody and in specific parts, but like at the end of the day, it's like it does try to like like present a like a hopeful message as well. But I did appreciate the fact at the end that like in the third volume we get like an interview with manga Shirokuro and he talks about his approach to the series, like his history, and also the publication status of the like of the series as well, which was really interesting to read as well, and really did help to recontextualize my feelings like on Leviathan in terms of like who is really meant for, because hey, like as like as someone who's like like getting very old and wants to like like experience like new stuff, like stuff he hasn't seen before. Well, I can't say that Leviathan really fit the bill. And in terms of like like Abrams like new Kana imprint in terms of like what it's like meant to be offering in terms of like seinen stuff, it's like, well, good lord, guys, if you're saying like like City Hunter is seinen, like get the fuck out, man. So because I've seen enough like of the City Hunter anime to know like I don't want to read any of that, and that's and it's not seinen at all. I mean, there is some other series that may like qualify as like hey, I'm curious about this, like say Eden of Witches, Frank Miller's Ronin Rising, like manga edition, which okay, we'll see if that's worth talking about at some point, or like Manhole, which okay, we'll see what that's about. But Leviathan, like it's I get the feeling that hey, like the younger you are, it's like, or if you're just like if you've been reading like like Shonen Jump series all the time, you think like yeah, I want something that's a bit more harder edged and all. Then hey, this will definitely fit the bill. But like for old like seasoned veterans like me, it's fine. Like I don't think I'm gonna like like toss this book off the first chance I get, but it was entertaining for what it was. It had some nice twists at the end, like which I appreciated, and yeah, it's like, and the storytelling is like relatively solid, but it's fine. I can't say that it was like like a must read, but it's like it's okay for what it was.
Yeah, seems to define it a little, huh?
Yeah, it's like I don't think like I'll be like gifting this to you as like a Christmas or birthday present at some point.
He says, I'll save you that. That's fine. All right. So, do you know what you're going to be talking about next time?
Well, assuming everything comes together, like we're going to be talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin Part 2. Which, if you're thinking like wait a second, how can The Last Ronin have another Last Ronin? Well, we'll be talking about that next time.
It's part two. It's a second part. It's a sequel. So,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. we'll catch you next time on Comic Picks by the Glick.
Laters.